Today is Tuesday, the 10th of October, 2017. It is block height 489,104, and we are back. We are back, guys. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. How are you 2 weeks off? A hiatus. I am now in Berlin, and I'm coming to you via my mobile phone because internet apparently is non-existent in Berlin. I got here expecting like 10 meg up. Where's my 10 meg up? Oh, apparently everyone in this apartment building shares one dude's like Wi-Fi. They will just share his password around between the floors. That's how bad the internet is. So really old buildings. I'm joined here by Janine. What's the name of this area called? Neukölln? Neukölln. And they're really old school buildings. But we're like up the top, and I will show you this later in the week, but on the 5th floor, we've got a balcony. It's really beautiful. It's quite cheap on Airbnb, and we're here to see some friends and like hang out. So yeah, and where are you coming from, Rick? And what's the weather like?
Hey, everybody, coming from snowy Colorado. The winter has set in a little early here, but I'm enjoying it, man. I like it. The snow, it just kind of cheers you up a little bit. I don't know. It's definitely different than rain. I like it.
Yeah, dude. I love that hat, by the way. Where'd you get it?
Oh, yeah, man. Just, got it from Samson, man. The Dragon's Den. I got the UASF over there. I just need to get the Make Bitcoin Great Again. And I don't know, maybe the Make Ethereum Immutable. Get the whole collection going. Maybe put it on a mantle somewhere.
Sweet, sweet. Shinobi, come in.
Hi, everybody. Has everyone
Hello.
been enjoying the things and the stuff?
Yeah, we're getting a couple new Bitcoins since the last time we were here, eh? We've got a couple new Hardforks, BitGold 2X. We'll be talking about that later.
Yeah, Adam Back put it best. Stop giving us high-stress free money.
Well, this is pretty low stress so far. And how about 2.0 scam Acnix? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's
cool.
Rainy, but yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Well, to answer your question, Brian Snyder, when show? Now show. Now the show starts. So let's start with Bitfinex. I will actually have to also tell you before we carry on that I will be handing over to Janine shortly because we've only got one phone for the two of us. So I'm going to be passing the mantle on in a bit, splitting up duties. But let's start with a company that I work for, Bitfinex, that announced the upcoming SegWit 2X Hardfork and the policy on it. I'll let you guys go first because I want to go into some of the terms that we use for the chain split token that was introduced. But if you guys want to go ahead and start us off. Shinobi.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much this looks like they're staying pretty consistent with what their terms were for the Bitcoin Unlimited air quote fork. You know, they obviously have their standard of things that are required for listings, such as replay protection, but I would say the strongest stance they can, considering they're a business at the end of the day that ultimately has to cater to their customers. They're going to list the original chain under the BTC ticker, and that will not be changing under any circumstances. Although they have left themselves the room in the highly unlikely hypothetical situation that 2x womps the real chain and winds up with a big hash rate and market cap lead to call it Bitcoin, but they still wouldn't end up changing the ticker from BTC just to have market data consistency and not cause a bunch of confusion. But I'm actually pretty happy with Finex's stance. Everybody likes to scream at the exchanges and go, "You do what I want," or "to hell with you." But at the end of the day, they're a business that have responsibilities to a lot of customers with a lot of different points of view. Their stance on this is probably the most responsible one they could have taken.
Well, we'll get into it in a minute, but actually the terms are actually different to the way they were with Bitcoin Unlimited. And I think partly the reason why that misinformation was going around so much initially was because a lot of the time people just don't bother reading the terms. And second of all, I think some of the critics just assumed that it would be, because broadly speaking, it looked the same. If you just look at it for 5 seconds, it kind of looks the same, but actually there were some different clauses, and I'll go into why in a minute. But also Coinbase said that they were going to continue to use the BTC ticker, at least initially. They were going to use different tickers for the two different tokens, the 2x tokens and the BTC tokens. And Finex is also saying they're going to do the same thing. Also, if you read this carefully, go down to the margin section of the announcement. It's the first link in the description below. You can follow along. Unlike what happened with Bitcoin Cash, where exchanges were only given about 7 days to actually prepare, this time what's going to happen with the margin positions is the shorts will have to pay. So if you're shorting Bitcoin or you're long ETH BTC, long LTC BTC, which is the same thing as being short on Bitcoin, you will have to go into the SegWit2x chain split market, and you will have to actually buy those 2x tokens for every Bitcoin you're short. You'll have to buy a SegWit2x coin as well to pay back the lender, right? Because the lenders are going to get paid this time. And the longs, the lenders got paid last time, but the longs didn't get paid. And this time the margin longs are also going to get paid. So if you're holding Bitcoins on spot, then you will get 2x tokens, you know, when the hard fork happens. If you are margin long, you will also get paid. And if you are lending, you will get paid. But if you are shorting Bitcoin, you will have to buy the actual SegWit tokens on the market. And the reason that it was able to be done this way this time is because there was a lot more lead time, and there was also the establishment of the chain split token. And one of the motives, and I guess I'm speaking less as a journalist now, more just as somebody that works at Finex, the reason that decision was taken is because there was a realization among the staff that these hard forks are just going to become more and more numerous. Like now, this is the new ICO now. This is the new distribution model. You basically take a UTXO set of something like Bitcoin, I'm sure Ethereum as well, and then you hard fork it and you tell all the people that were holding coins at the time of the fork, well, you've now got these free tokens that we're giving you. And so what is required, so that we don't have to do this kind of coefficient thing, we don't have to kind of do any of this mathematics that surrounded the Bitcoin Cash, where it all depended on how many people were margin long, margin short, depending on how many of the tokens everybody got. What you can actually have is as a chain split market, where you actually get some future pricing mechanism, and you get a liquidity pool, so that when the actual event does take place, you get a market that the shorters can then go into. And also you can do things like manage the margin requirements leading up to the event, because if people don't have enough in their margin account to cover the losses that they're going to incur, that can also be a problem. But with a futures market, with a chain split market, what you have is a forward pricing mechanism. This is what markets are good at. And that means that the exchange can then warn the user to say, hey, you know, on this day, there's going to be a hard fork and you're going to owe this much money, and you don't have enough margin right now in order to pay for this loan. So that can give people time to prepare and manage their positions.
Yeah, I'm glad that, you know, Bitfinex put out this statement. Honestly, I was kind of wondering how each of these exchanges were going to approach the situation, and I really liked Bitfinex's, you know, stance on basically taking it just like any other chain split. They're not really, you know, saying, oh, it's got this behind it and that behind it, so we're going to give it this. And I really like that. And you know, I really hope that, you know, this pans out. I just like hear you talking about all this margin and the shorts and all this stuff, and it's just like Bitcoin's already confusing for new users, and we kind of wonder, like, why is SegWit2x an attack? It's like this just got a whole lot more confusing for people that are just trying to figure this out. And you know, like, I hope that that they can navigate through this, because like you're saying, this isn't going to stop. We're going to see more and more of these. I think we're going to see this as like the new ICO way to get your coins distributed right from the get. It's definitely something where I hope it plays out okay, but it's still, we're in the weeds with this thing.
Yeah, so basically all the complexity around the margin stuff, if you're a trader, I guess you're going to be more au fait with that. If you're just somebody that's coming in and buying Bitcoin, that stuff is just complexity that you don't necessarily have to worry about. What I did want to talk about now, unless anybody else had anything to go into, is the actual terms of the contract, or just one clause in particular, just to make everybody clear on it. Scam, Shinobi, any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do it.
Cool. All right. So Olivier Janssens did a post. We actually approached various people when we were coming up with the terms of the contracts, and Olivier was one of them. And Olivier, of course, is very much a critic of the Finex in the past, and also of Bitcoin Core, and has been championing many attempts to raise the block size. And he released a Medium post, which you can see from the links in the description below. It's actually at the top of this Reddit post that I'm showing you right now, where he says that why Bitfinex's chain split tokens are completely biased towards the small block debate. I'm not going to enumerate all of his points in today's show, certainly, because this is a general news show. I think it almost deserves a dedicated interview with Olivier if he wants to do that. But I just want to go into why a lot of the critics felt like the Bitcoin Unlimited tokens were biased, and that's because under the Bitcoin Unlimited, there were various things, but chief among them was, well, what happens if Bitcoin Core merges the code into the core branch? The terms of the conditions appear as though they will basically pay all of the core. Anyone who bought the core coin, BCC as it was called, will be rewarded. But that feels so wrong to the Bitcoin Unlimited crowd, because if Bitcoin Unlimited's code base just gets merged into the master branch of Bitcoin Core, it should be Bitcoin Unlimited that gets rewarded, right? The people that hold the BU tokens, not the BCC tokens. So this time around, when the contract was being drafted up, obviously we got lots of opinions, and actually it was one of the core developers that came to Finex with a suggestion, which is the fact that in section 6, which is here, this is the Secret2x terms of service, a lot of time was put into this. We have section 6, which is the eventuality of one chain, which is in the unlikely event that one chain exists and it is compatible with the consensus rules of both the incumbent blockchain and Secret2x, then a determination may be made in the sole and absolute discretion of Bitfinex as to whether the blockchain is more compatible with the consensus rules effective on October 5th, which is actually when the contract started. So that's a lot of legalese, but the TLDR is that in the event that the Secret2x code is merged by Bitcoin Core into the master branch, then it will be the BT2 tokens that will be convertible. And the BT1 tokens, which represent Bitcoin Core, they will be deemed to have a value of 0. So that was one of the big differences. And there were some other changes too, like for example, in the contract, it doesn't refer to Bitcoin Core, it refers to the incumbent blockchain. Because when we were thinking about this, it was like, well, what's always going to be true in all of these fork events? We weren't just writing it for this particular contract, we were writing it for all the future forks they're going to be coming up. So it's always going to be true that there is an incumbent chain, one that already exists, because necessarily there has to be in order to fork away from it or to improve upon it. And then you have the challenger, you have somebody that's coming in with some kind of improvement proposal. Maybe they hope that it replaces the incumbent, or maybe they just think, well, it doesn't need to replace it. It can just be a separate chain unto itself. In the case of Secret2x, though, the hope is that this protocol is an upgrade and that it will still retain the BTC ticker. And actually, I will say to you now that several exchanges have discussed this. There are very important logistical reasons and technical reasons why you can't change the tickers on a whim. It is a big deal for people to do that, for exchanges to do that. But that doesn't mean that just because Coinbase and Bitfinex have decided that BTC, even after the fork event, there will be a separate ticker for the Secret chain and Bitcoin will still have the BTC ticker. It doesn't mean that in the fullness of time that they won't come together and actually as an industry, let's say if the incumbent chain, the current one, ends up being unsupported, that they won't end up making the Secret chain give it the BTC ticker eventually. So the big disagreement really with this clause wasn't so much this paragraph here, although most people on our BTC, where I am now, actually totally missed that. They didn't even read it. It was more the point that it was at Bitfinex's discretion. This is one of the problems, is a lack of trust in Bitfinex, I think, particularly by the people that are the big block camp, so in quotes. And basically, I asked, well, would you accept the terms if it were a neutral party that had to decide? And this Redditor said yes. And so I am going to go away and I'm going to look into it. I'm going to see if there is any kind of possibility to remedy that. Okay, I'm done.
That would be pretty interesting, you know, if you can kind of remove the responsibility for the party actually hosting the contract, then it's like, what do they have left to complain about?
Well, the other criticism that I saw on Twitter, I'll see if I can pull up the chap's name, was that a lot of people, well, they can't trade because they're US maybe. So Bitfinex's market doesn't necessarily represent the market sentiment at large, because a lot of people can't trade there, and a lot of people won't trade there because they don't trust Bitfinex. Now, that may be because post-hack, I don't know, that doesn't look like that, you know, on the rich list of Bitcoin addresses. You know, Bitfinex's cold wallet is right up there. I think currently the challenging #1 spot for the largest Bitcoin address on the network. And then the second complaint would be, well, big blockers don't trust them because of what happened with the BU tokens. So I think that's kind of where they're coming from on this. And I'm not trying to, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I just think it's important to see the other person's point of view.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the first aspect, there's not really much you can do about that. I mean, there really isn't any single market out there that is globally accessible to absolutely everybody. And I mean, as far as like problems with the BU contract, like they had to do something on the fly, and you guys have obviously iterated off of that and tried to improve things and deal with a lot of people's concerns and complaints. I mean, nothing is ever perfect off the bat.
Yeah, let me pull up that Twitter thread now, and I can answer any questions from the chat as well if anybody wants to go through it. So it was from this chap here. Do you recognize him, Shinobi?
Yes, and not to be bogus, but Sueso is insane.
Yeah, I thought you might say that, but I'm just trying to channel. I'm just trying to channel what he's saying, which is that, you know, Bitfinex isn't, you know, necessarily, and I agree. Like it would be really cool if all the exchanges could do this, so you could capture the whole of the market sentiment. I don't think you can. I think it's kind of risky to say that because the SegWit2x futures price is trading at this price on this one exchange, even if it is real volume TM, which Bitfinex, you know, allegedly has. It's where all the whales trade. It's where, you know, people in Whale Pool, you know, Flibber and people like that, it's where they trade, right? So people often see market movement at the Bitfinex exchange as being actually indicative of where the money really is, like the big money. And I would urge caution, even as somebody that works there, I would still urge caution that that's right, you probably want to see lots of prediction markets, but other exchanges didn't want to touch it. And they didn't want to touch it because they don't want to encourage hard forks, right? Like Bitstamp are not on the list of 2x supporters, right? They're not going to go over, and they're not listing any kind of futures market, and BitMEX aren't, even though BitMEX would normally love this kind of stuff, right? They're all about these derivatives and these contracts and, you know, futures. So that's why you're not going to get a broad market support for these kind of chain split tokens or futures contracts.
I think not just that, but also, like, you know, I mean, people expect these exchanges to be, you know, like licensed exchanges that have everything set together. I mean, you know, like Shinobi was just saying with the BU token, you know, y'all manage that like you could. And, you know, as these things come out, you know, you try to stay with it, and trying to get market sentiment on a token like this, yeah, it'd be really hard because, you know, there's nowhere really to go to get that sentiment. At least you guys have helped do that by providing a future there to where some people can at least look at that and say, well, it's trading at this for right now. So, I mean, you know, I appreciate what y'all are doing over there, trying to make it really like putting together that letter to where it's like a standard form, and, you know, trying to get everything up to board with the way that, you know, exchanges should be run. I really like Bitfinex.
Cool. Yeah,
even though I can't trade there.
Yeah, you're not allowed to trade there. Okay, cool. So Damujen says, I short EOS for a living on Bitfinex. Sounds good. Yeah, all those ICOs, you can short them all over on Bitfinex. So critics say so many forks will defragment. I think that's from Al Cubes. So I actually think the more forks there are, the stronger it will be for Bitcoin, because you've got like 1 or 2 forks. Somebody said this the other day on Twitter, I forget who. Like you have 1 or 2 forks and that creates division. You have 100 forks, that creates unity, right? Like everyone gets behind that. So yeah, I can't wait for my BitGold. You're going to have these private keys, right? You could just leave them in a paper wallet and come back 10 years time. You've got like 100 tokens, you know, like you're just going to have all these. The problem is that a lot of these forks, they just go up and down. They're like a pump and dump. And look at Bitcoin Cash right now. I mean, that is just a disaster. That price has just plummeted.
Yeah, that flash crash.
Yeah, the flash crash. Yeah, it's really, really plummeted. I think when the SegWit2x chain split token came out, that yeah, it was just, you know, that was it. You know, there's only so much liquidity to go around. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Charlene in just a minute, and the next topic, this is yours, Shinobi, is update on Bitcoin SegWit2x Hardfork. Go. I'm going to switch over.
All right. So Coinbase has been super quiet about the 2x agreement since they initially signed it and voiced their support about it. And the one thing I want to point out here is they're not committing to listing 2x as BTC or Bitcoin. And I think that's very interesting and very telling. Because yeah, I don't know if anybody saw it. I'll try and get the link together. But Samson Mao the other day pointed out that supporting 2x, if not listing it in a distinct way that distinguishes it from Bitcoin and with safety features such as the replay protection, it's actually potentially in violation of the NY license, which would really put them in a hot spot because like Coinbase's entire business model is based around having all of these licenses and regulatory approval to be able to conduct everything above board. And like me personally, I've said this a few times that I would be perfectly willing to take legal action against Coinbase if they were to try and fraudulently list a new chain as if it were Bitcoin. And I really think this is kind of a sign that they're feeling that heat, that they're aware of that, and they're not willing to just blindly do something reckless and stupid just because they signed an agreement with some other companies. So I think this is a good sign, especially with them not even having Bcash support finalized yet. They're still going to have to work out supporting 2x now at the same time.
Yeah, I'm you know, glad to see these statements coming out and everything. I wish it would be a little bit more clear on what kind of ticker they plan to use. I know that there's a little bit of language in here where it's like, you know, it's up for interpretation. Like, you know, they talk about once the chains are secure and stable, then they can make a better decision on this. And, you know, like you're saying with these things coming out, you know, in Coinbase with all this licensing they have. And if these things are seen as, you know, derivatives of Bitcoin or, you know, possibly even some of them as securities or something like that, then, you know, it's like they have a legal obligation to provide this to their customers. And, you know, I just wish we would see Coinbase take more of a stance like Bitfinex did, as far as like just a sort of a one size fits all measure for all these things, instead of I don't know, just leaving this fork so much more like up for interpretation still. Like this, I'm still kind of weighing this news. I want to see how they're really going to respond to it, but it feels like I've got to wait for more you know, how they feel this fork's going to play out.
I think that's kind of exactly what they're doing with how they've kind of structured this statement. They're leaving themselves that out to not take a firm stance on whether or not 2x is Bitcoin. And I predict fully that they're just, as soon as like happens and we actually see this fork, as soon as it starts getting listed, they're going to jump right back on the Bitcoin bandwagon and say Bitcoin is Bitcoin and list it as something else. And like really for them, they've had a lot with the type of user load that's been coming their way over the past year or two. as far as just keeping their business running. And like the idea that they are going to have to deal with all these forks being thrown after them, one after another, they're either going to have to get their shit together and develop some kind of toolkit, some degree of plug and play usability that just lets users just pull their derivative coins off the exchange and then wash their hands of it, or they're going to have to investigate the legal options for maybe limiting their liability for these types of things, because like they can barely keep their business running as it is. They have so many people stampeding towards them. Like the idea that they can really jump on these forks in the way that a lot of other exchanges without the kind of problems they're having, I find that very hard to believe they can successfully pull that off.
Yeah, I just hope we don't get another disaster like we had with Bcash, where there's that article in TechCrunch that was saying, oh, Bcash is an upgrade to the Bitcoin network, and you need to make sure that you put your coins in an exchange that accepts Bcash so that you get the upgrade. And it's like, no. So I hope that they're preparing. I really hope that all the exchanges are taking into account that there's going to be a lot of journalists doing that kind of stuff, and that they need to be really prepared in advance, that they have some kind of agreement between each other about what the tickers are going to be so that people don't get confused. Because even besides that, they were getting confused that some people thought that BitConnect was Bitcoin Cash, because they were also I don't know which ones, but some of them were using BCC and that was BitConnect. So but a bunch of people ended up buying BitConnect,
right,
which is definitely not what they wanted. No one wanted that.
I think that you know, the Bitcash guys are confused too. I mean, like we've seen the news come out, like how for some reason Bitcoin.com is going to, you know, label SegWit2x as BTC, and which like really doesn't make that much sense because they don't really run an exchange. But you know, these guys are supposedly the guys that run Bcash, and now they're labeling SegWit2x as the real Bitcoin. It's just like these guys are all over the place.
Yeah, I think it was. Shinobi, didn't you say a few days ago or last week that you thought the biggest mistake Satoshi made was not buying both Bitcoin domains, bitcoin.org and bitcoin.com?
I don't remember saying that, but I'll definitely say that's true. It's like with Roger, you know, like the more I really look at this, especially after that talk that me and John had with Vinny yesterday, I really just think that the business leaders in this space just understand how this works. And I really think that comes from just the normal hierarchy in like a company. Like the developers, the technical people, they do what the boss tells them. But that's just not how it works. And like, yeah, I know this isn't really a popular opinion, and it, you know, might come across to a lot of people like I'm excusing air quotes scumbags. But I really think after 2X that we as a community need to kind of step back a little bit and really try to distinguish between or just adjusting to an environment that is the polar opposite of what they have like dealt with in their lives and in their careers, and people who actually have malicious intent. This really is it's a global revolution that is completely upending how everything it touches is conventionally done. And for a lot of people that are really ingrained in the old way of doing things, that have made their living because of the old way of doing things, that's going to take some time for them to adjust to and really wrap their head around. And you know, not everybody is Roger Ver. Not everybody is a completely irrational person just lashing out and intentionally trying to be malevolent as possible. Like it's some people in this space that, you know, even I staunchly disagree with what they're doing and their stance on things. Like I think they just don't understand things yet. I really think that's something that we all need to think about going forward and try to actually build bridges instead of burn them where that's a rational move.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this air clears up after this 2x move, and we can really start, like you're saying, building more bridges and getting things done, and stop all this infighting. Like, hopefully this will be, I don't know, we can turn the page on all this stuff.
Yeah, I was telling someone the other day that I thought that we really needed some kind of slogan that was the equivalent of "run your own full node" or run a full node. We need something like that for the social network aspect of the Bitcoin community, where it's something like be your own thought leader. Because I think that we don't stress enough that, even though we're trying to build a decentralized network, we haven't really done that well with the social aspect, because people are still trying to establish hierarchies where they're claiming to represent people or that they're leading people in their views. I've never liked the term thought leader because it sounds like something out of 1984. But yeah, I think we need some kind of slogan to tell people to think for themselves and to realize that, no one should be freaking out about this hard fork, because in the end, it doesn't matter which one ends up getting more hash power, because if you want to continue running either one, you can. You just need to run a full node, and as long as your node is running that software, that's what, Bitcoin is whatever you think it is. So, yeah.
I like that. Be your own thought leader. Think for yourself. Question authority.
Yeah, and I mean, like, by no means am I saying, like, don't call bullshit when you see bullshit, but just, like, step back for a minute and try to appreciate somebody else's motives, because, like, at the end of the day, this is one big social incentive structure. These are at the heart of that. So if you're not really considering somebody's motives, then you aren't really being a rational actor in that incentive structure.
Yeah, I think. All right. I'm sorry, Janine.
You can finish up. I didn't know if we were going to move on to the next topic.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm ready for that.
Okay. The next topic is, this is about how they've removed, I don't know the details of what exactly happened, but I heard that Jeff Garzik removed replay protection, or optional opt-in replay protection from the SegWit2x code, right?
Yeah, I haven't, like, checked the mailing list, or I'm actually banned from their Slack channel, so I can't check there. But pretty much the opt-in replay protection that he merged a little while ago required one output in a transaction to be spent to a pay to script hash address that's public out there. And this was very, in my opinion, because this is it's just not the simplest solution. Like, an op-return flag could have been used, prunable from our unspent transaction output set. So all it's doing is eating block space. It's not bloating the UTXO set. Whereas requiring a small output sent to this address, that creates an output in the UTXO set that's not prunable, and it bloats our UTXO set. On top of that, I believe that the conditions to actually spend from this are public. So on top of bloating our unspent transaction output set, this is effectively an incentive for people to just spam our chain trying to spend this the entire way. And I'm not actually sure what the reasoning is that he reverted this. I mean, hopefully to implement a more intelligent replay protection mechanism that doesn't externalize a lot of costs onto the original chain. But I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that this has just been removed completely, and that they might try to push forward with absolutely no replay protection, because this is kind of getting very heated. And not to project a lot, but it seems like a lot of the 2x supporters are just scrambling for justification or a narrative or something to legitimize this and actually push it forward. And is kind of that admitting this isn't Bitcoin. This is a derivative, distinct and different thing. So hopefully that second case is not the reason this was removed, but I think that everybody should be prepared for the possibility that they might move forward with absolutely no replay protection.
Be so careless.
Yeah, because I mean, credit where credit is due. I mean, Bitcoin Cash went with the op return option for their replay protection. So maybe the reason they didn't go with that is because they wanted to distinguish themselves from Bcash or something. I have no idea why they went with that option.
Actually, that was what they were originally going to do, but I think what Bcash ended up doing in the end was taking the signing algorithm from SegWit and just using that by itself so that the signature scheme was actually different. Exactly. Like I think that is a joke of a thing that is going to implode on itself, but they at least had the integrity to make a clean break in a way that wasn't disruptive to the main network. And I can only hope that Jeff Garzik has that same degree of integrity.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. Like, I've heard some rumblings, like you were saying, about this being, taken down because they're going to put in some stronger replay protection. But, we still have to wait and see that because, like you're saying, I last night in that interview, I heard a few times Vinny talk about, no replay protection. And, I mean, maybe they want it like that. They don't want replay protection. So, I mean, like you're saying too, we have to be prepared. And it's definitely a lot of work for exchanges, and hopefully we'll see this stronger replay protection come in a little bit.
Yeah, just about the SegWit2x thing in general, I saw a great screen cap going around from a comment on Reddit that the person, it was like if you got a Bitcoin user and one of these one of these businesses that supports SegWit2x together in a conversation, and the users would be saying, we want SegWit, and the business would be saying, we don't really want SegWit, and then you say, we really want SegWit, and the business are like, okay, we'll give you SegWit, but we want a 2 megabyte hard fork, and the users say, nope, we just want SegWit, and it's like, okay, we're going to do a 2 megabyte hard fork in 2 months, thanks for agreeing with us. And then it comes down to the hard fork, and they're like, okay, we're going to fork, and the user's like, nope, we don't want to do a fork. It's like, but you agreed to this. No, we didn't.
You know what? I actually hope I can find this. There's actually a member of the community. I'm just going to drop the link in the box, Janine. But some might know him as Juicy on Twitter. He's kind of an eccentric guy. He comes on a little strong, and because of that, a lot of the people that he tries to engage with kind of just write him off or dismiss him. But this is probably one of the most well-read and informed people I can think of as far as game theory, and especially John Nash's theories regarding sound money and the economy. But one of the things he pointed out a while back regarding SegWit2x, he's quoting a Nick Szabo about a thought experiment, a paradox called Gregory Kafka's toxin. And pretty much the entire gist of it is, let's say you get $1 million put into your bank account at 9 a.m. If at 7 a.m. you intend to drink a poison that is very painful, but otherwise doesn't do anything else at 11 a.m. And pretty much the entire notion of this experiment is that, you get the reward before you actually do the thing you're getting the reward for. And would you actually follow through with that thing, even though you get the reward anyway, and it doesn't really do any lasting harm to you? And the Gregory Kafka, the person who created this thought experiment, essentially says that you can't, just because you wouldn't have that intent. You would know you would get it anyway. You wouldn't actually, fulfill the requirements of it. But see, one of the interesting things he points out is this is very analogous to the SegWit 2x, like the entire New York agreement. It was effectively the intent to do something that nobody wanted to do really, but get the reward for doing so first. And that paradox of are people actually going to go through with it? And I think this is a really nice kind of look at when you're really thinking through this entire situation, because we got what we needed. Like there actually was, because of the group nature of this, the intent to follow through with it, but we already got what most people wanted out of it. So this just fall apart at the end, because most people don't really want to follow through with the condition for the reward.
Yeah, just going back to like this whole incentive thing, it's like the Bcash and the SegWit 2x, like I don't know. I'm just I'm kind of getting lost in my thought here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I lost my thought there. I got trapped up in there. But yeah, this is a little bit of a confusing subject, so I guess it's kind of okay to get lost there. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, sorry. I just kind of threw that out there. I just thought that is a good thing to maybe toss out for people to think about.
Now I got it back, man. I'm sorry. But like the Bcash and the New York agreement, like those guys were in that New York agreement, right? Roger Ver and Jahan and the miners and everything. And then they left that spot and then they forked. And you're right. It's like they got what they wanted. Now we got these business guys who are sitting on the sidelines saying, well, wait a minute. We didn't really get our deal. And I feel like that's where it's like we're at right now. It's like these guys, they're trying to get what they want. Sorry about that. I got lost.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, they forked off. They have what they wanted on their own chain, and pretty much the vast majority of people on our chain, we have what we want. So why would we follow through with this painful thing? It's not going to be fatally damaging in the end, but why would we deal with the pain when is objectively ignoring the possibility of just outright malicious intent? Everybody has what they want right now. Why would we do this?
You got me, man. That's why we're sitting here discussing this thing, like, because it's definitely something where it's like we're kind of all shaking our head going, what are we doing here?
Yeah, before we move on, I mean, I have an anecdote about that, because one of the things that fake Satoshi, I mentioned this on a previous episode, but fake Satoshi made a tweet about how businesses in Germany weren't taking Bitcoin anymore after like around 2014, 2015, because the fees were too high. And while that may be true, the real reason was because, as mentioned on that show, is the bigger reason is because what is it? Local Bitcoins got banned in Germany. And obviously it's because Germany's mostly cash-based society. That was a big deal. And one of the things that I responded to regarding that tweet was that actually businesses here in Germany, especially in Berlin where we are right now, really like SegWit. Like Room 77 has SegWit on their coasters, and the reason they like it is because it makes the fees a lot smaller. So yeah, I don't know, like now that we have SegWit, I don't know why we need the 2x part, because, if the motive is to supposedly, I mean, they've kind of backtracked on that and they said the fees are too cheap, but if the motive is to make fees smaller, then we've achieved that. So what more is there to do right now?
You need to save face, though. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Next topic is apparently a bunch of Chinese investors are saying that the Chinese government does not understand anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Who wants to take this one?
And I'll take it. It basically runs down what we were thinking all along as far as that Bitcoin ban goes, that China really doesn't, they don't really have the resources to do this, and no country really has the resources to do this. And I mean, like, you know, we can all say in theory that they could try and they could try their hardest, but it's looking like this is really just like they shut everything down to do that regulatory capture and then open everything back up with regulations and licensing. And, you know, I think we're starting to see, you know, Chinese investors now starting to say, like, you know, this was not something that was going to permanently ban Bitcoin. And, you know, they're starting to feel a little bit more bullish about it. So I think overall it's good news, but it's kind of news that we understood whenever the ban came out. We kind of thought, like, you know, this isn't going to be a full-time thing. And so I think we're starting to see that come out of China now, that, yeah, you know, the Bitcoin ban is not really there. You know, we still trading.
Yeah, and I think like one of the, what was his name? Wang Zhen, like pretty much like they're still trying to figure this out. You know, like China has very strict financial controls to try to prevent, you know, outflow of money. And obviously you see people still finding ways around that, like parking money in property in Vancouver, like other parts of North America. But, you know, I think their big concern is really just stemming that outflow. It's not stomping Bitcoin out of existence. It's them trying to wrap their head around how this actually works so that they can prevent things like, you know, massive capital outflow that they can't control, way to benefit from cryptocurrencies in positive ways if they can find a way to do so. Because, you know, China is one of their the People's Bank of China is actually one of the big financial institutes that's actually looking into issuing their own cryptocurrency. And at the same time, you know, like you just said, like I was kind of scared for a while that we might see a full crackdown on Bitcoin, that we might see mining farms seized, the Great Firewall start filtering out Bitcoin peer-to-peer network traffic. And it kind of like I was a little overly zealous or paranoid about that, it seems, at least for now. And they didn't really go that far. Them trying to deal with that financial aspect in terms of exchanges to control the on and off ramps. And, you know, I really think as far as people in China and how they can domestically utilize cryptocurrencies, that there might be a lot of big crackdowns or restrictions coming. But I feel like China's still looking for a way to integrate that into their long-term financial planning in a way that benefits them without kind of just tossing the keys to the chains metaphorically to the people.
Yeah, I actually find this statement really interesting where, let's see, it's a researcher at Central University of Finance and Economics that says cryptocurrencies and other virtual currencies attempt to challenge the sovereign state's right to issue currency. I think that's an interesting statement because I don't actually think that Bitcoin is saying the state cannot issue a currency. I mean, obviously, you know, people who support Bitcoin, like ideologically, they might say that the state shouldn't be doing that. But I don't think Bitcoin says that the state doesn't have a right to issue a currency. Actually, what Bitcoin is saying is that it's reinforcing the right of the people for anyone to issue a currency, not just the state. It's saying that the state does not have a monopoly on the issuance of currency. And I think it was a documentary, Ulterior States, where Ian Grigg actually said that, where he said that the amazing thing about Bitcoin is that it gave money back to the people. It said that people could do their own money. And so that's the quote that stood out to me from this article.
Yeah, you know, I really feel like we're starting to see these nations clamp down on regulations because, you know, they're trying to understand it. And I think one thing they do understand right now is they don't want their Bitcoin to leave the country. You know, we saw that guy from BTCC kind of being like a poker chip between the US and Russia because this guy's got a lot of Bitcoin somewhere. And I think, you know, the idea is just to kind of like you're saying, like they don't want the outflows to be leaving their state or their country. You know, they want that, you know, what they don't understand to stay there until they do understand it.
Oops, I had the wrong window selected. But Jameson Lopp actually made a tweet earlier today that the 144,000 Bitcoin auctioned off from the Silk Road seizure is probably going to be remembered as the biggest financial blunder in history.
Yeah, I think every year we see that that article come out about what that would be worth nowadays, and I think the last article I saw, it would have paid like for a third of the U.S. debt, something like that, close to it. Definitely one of these major programs they're trying to initiate. So hopefully, maybe we'll start seeing this whenever, you know, Bitcoin is like, you know, I don't know, it's held by these nations because they understand there's value to it, even though they don't understand how it's created, but they understand there's value there.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they're just another entity with bills to pay.
All right. Does anyone have any final comments before we go to the shout out? Nope.
Mr.
Okay.
Aknix?
No? Atnix? Okay. Shout out time. So the exciting news today is that Purism, who has been running a crowdfund for their Librem 5 smartphone, which is it's a Linux smartphone, uses all open source software, and they also have really cool features on it that hardware kill switches for things like the Wi-Fi, the camera, the microphone. Which is actually an interesting story that came out recently, is that in Apple iOS, apparently when you go into the system settings, and I've never used an iPhone, so I don't know the specific areas, but apparently when you go into the system settings to turn off the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth through the software, it actually doesn't turn off, I guess. There was an article in Wired about this, and so I immediately thought, well, if you had hardware kill switches, you would know it was off because, you know, physical separation. But yeah, I thought it was cool that, because a lot of people weren't sure whether the Librem smartphone would get funded, and now they've got $1.5 million, and they do have some stretch goals to add additional features, like they were going to offer like free VPN service for a year to all the backers. So you still, even though the crowdfund achieved its goal, because basically the crowdfund they were running, it was they ran it based on the premise that if they reached their goal, then they would do it. If they didn't reach their goal, they would never build this smartphone. So now that they've reached their goal, they can start building it, but you can obviously still pitch in if you want to. Does anyone have any thoughts on this at all?
Just that this is really like, we're starting to see a market pop up where it's like, you know, outside of Windows, outside of Mac, outside of all the backdoors, we want privacy. There's a market for it. And we're seeing it to where these things are going to start taking over some of these places where, you know, there's legacy guys that have been sitting there for a long time who need to be unseated because they're just so careless and reckless about these things, where, yeah, we got projects coming up, and, you know, hopefully bigger players will take note and say, well, maybe we should change our, you know, the way we do business. I highly doubt that they'll do that, but maybe they will.
Okay, I'm back. It's me again. Shinobi, what do you think about the Librem? What do you think about the Librems?
I want it now. I don't want to wait a year.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think, you know, we've been talking a lot to our friends about these Librem things, and it's expensive to ship internationally. Like, really expensive. And a lot of people are very impatient for the core boot, and they were waiting for a very long time. But I think they look really juicy, and I think they're about to get really, really popular really soon. So I would definitely be joining on this. I've been wanting this for such a long time, man.
Yeah, I'm sick of having to go rip hardware out of devices so that they can be properly air-gapped.
I mean, this has been just a meme for how long? The Linux phone, right? It will happen. No, it never did until now. Oh, hopefully. We'll have to see.
It's happening. It's happening right now. The hardware switches, they're a thing. Ethics is finally being put into design. And I think that's really cool. And I want to see other companies compete with them too. Okay.
Take my money.
Linux on smartphone.
Yeah, Linux on a smartphone. Cool. And guys, want to also give a shout out to World Crypto Network for doing a great job of covering the Hacker Congress in Prague. We had this video here from Amir Taaki, who gave like this 1 hour, 20-minute, what sounded a bit like a sales pitch for his like hackers. These wanted, was it Confederated Democracy or Democratic Confederate something? I forget the name of it now. Do you guys watch it?
It was a lot of big words.
Oh yeah, it was very yeah, it was very erudite, I would say. And I haven't watched it all in full. I was watching it on and off because the internet here was so patchy. But I thought, yeah, good job in total. And the links to some of the various videos that they covered are in the description below. So thank you very much, guys, for that great effort. I really enjoyed it. And it's good to see Amir again, actually, to be honest. I mean, even though it was a little bit like someone said, don't go full cult. You went full cult, never go full cult. I didn't feel like it was full cult, but I was a little bit like, yeah, it sounds a little bit communist to me, but of course he would say that's like establishment thinking on my part. And, you know, but yeah, I'm willing to, yeah, and the berets, look at those things. My God. But yeah, when he started like giving the pitch of like joining his hacker group, I loved it when one guy from the crowd shouted out to him about the system and he kept using that word, the system. And then Amir just goes to him, look, all right. I already know what you're saying, right? Yeah, you keep saying system. Yeah, you just want to tweak it. We're trying to overthrow it. That's brilliant. And look, I grok that. I grok his like passion and his enthusiasm, not just for tweaking the system, but for completely root and branch, just uprooting it and overthrowing it. So good on you, Amir, and good to have him back as well.
Yeah, and real quick, I need to throw a little hissy fit right now. I've been trying to get people to follow this man because it pisses me the fuck off that a random asshole like me has more followers than him. And with this whole Vinny thing, I'm back to having more followers than him. So go fucking follow that man on Twitter.
Good point. Smart man.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull him up. That's not him, by the way. I'm just trying to find him on Twitter right now.
Amir Polytechnic.
Amir Polytechnic. Okay. Come on,
like,
quick.
This man, like, he started the first CoinJoin wallet, and admittedly he didn't finish it, but he started it. He was the first one to try it. He made the first C++ development library to build things for Bitcoin. He literally created the bit process. Like this man was one of the most integral people to getting Bitcoin off the ground in its early days. And it just seems to me like most people now just have no idea who this man is. Man. Like he has a fuck ton of.
Yeah, but this happened because a whole bunch of new people came into the space. He went off and fought ISIS, and he was gone for a long time. And he actually sunsetted his old Twitter, his original one, because Twitter was censoring. Ironically enough, they were censoring ISIS. So I think he disagreed with that. So he quit, even though he hates ISIS. He disagreed that Twitter should be censoring them. He's a very principled man. And he then went off and fought ISIS, disappeared. A whole bunch of newcomers came into the space who don't necessarily know shit from shit, or don't know dick from dick, or however you say it, Shinobi. And they're just in there like, I'm a thought leader, I'm a guru. And they do the conference circuit and they get all the appearances on all the shows, they do all the things. And suddenly they're like thought leaders now. And they've got, you know, tens of thousands of views, and they're just charlatans, right? And but then somebody like him comes along, and even if you disagree with his philosophy, I don't agree with everything he says, but you know, they're just he challenges you, like intellectually, he challenges you, and that's good, and that encourages honest debate. And so yeah, I do enjoy having him around. I think he's a good presence on this community. We need more people like him.
Yeah, follow him, everybody.
Yeah. But the only reason he doesn't have that many followers for now is because he's not a shameless marketer, and he's only been on Twitter for a while. He's only just come back. So yeah, Bitcoin.
I will shamelessly market for him.
Axiom. Yeah, he created all the. He didn't create all the. He created BIP1, and then Luke Jr. took on the BIPs after him.
It's amazing.
Yeah, sorry, Rick, but what Chris has on the screen right here is some of the writings that Amir did in the early day that are in the GitHub for the Libitcoin library. I highly recommend that everybody read them.
I was just going to say, it's amazing that these guys are in the space that you don't really hear of, because, like, you know, they disappear and they're doing real world things that are important, and, you know, they come back and everybody, well, who is this guy? It's like, this is really important. You should listen to what this guy says. And, you know, I think that, thanks for, you know, pointing him out to me. I'm following him now.
Cool. All right, guys. So this is it. We're back. Season 2X, I'm calling it. Season 2X. How do you like that? How do you feel about it? We want to do a show every day?
Yeah, I like that.
No, 2 shows a day.
Season 2X till it's over.
Yeah, 2 times the number of shows. Yeah, of course. Well, we still want to do some stuff in the actual Mumble chat, record some of that. We did the Krista Rose thing. I've recorded some other conversations here and there that I haven't got around to editing yet, so maybe I'll do that. But yeah, man, I want to see Shinobi host a few shows as well, so I can sort of do some other things here in Berlin this week, and then yeah, but we'll see. We see. Oh, the Monero meetup. When is it?
I guess
the 12th. The Monero. Yeah, so we're going to be going to the Monero meetup, for example, on the 12th.
It sounds fun.
Room 77, I'm being told. So yeah, all good things, and thanks very much to everybody that's joined us again after that hiatus. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm glad that I could get the internet up and running, and hopefully my lips are now syncing with the words that I'm saying as they're coming out of my mouth, and you're not having to see some weird delay and choppiness and all that kind of stuff. And see you next time. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, you can hit the like and subscribe button, but remember, only if you want to. Bye for now.